Hello and welcome to Crowbar Kernel Panic, the podcast at the intersection of Linux and gaming. This episode, we're pre-recorded, but we'll be releasing on YouTube's. Oh my gosh.
Getting old here.
Let me just
Releasing
redo.
on the YouTubes.
Hello and welcome to Crowbar Kernel Panic, the podcast at the intersection of Linux and gaming. This episode was pre-recorded, but will be released on YouTube, iTunes, and podcast platforms. Please like, rate, review, comment, subscribe on whichever platform you prefer to listen or view the show. We really appreciate it. This episode, we have a whole lot of boomer MMO news, and we have some Linux news specific to if you are playing Elden Ring on Linux. We're going to give you a little bit of a tip on that. And also, what I hope that everyone has been emptying out their wallets for the Steam Summer Sale.
At this point.
I know, man. The Steam Summer Sale will get you. It's like everything on your wish list that you put on your wish list because you were like, that looks like a good game, but I don't know if I want to spend $40 or $60 on it. Well, guess what? For the next week or so, it's like $4. So go ahead and make that purchase.
The next 12 months, you get to pay $6.99 a month on your credit card.
Yeah, what happens is you buy it at the Steam Summer Sale because it's on sale, but then you never get around to playing it. So it's just in your list of shame.
List of shame.
Yeah, the Steam library should just be called List of Shame because a lot of times
you're not wrong.
It's games that I purchased, installed, played for 5 minutes, and never did.
That's exactly. You nailed it.
Although, I got to say, I think that my first, I bought a $3 game, and I was kind of obsessed with it for a while. I played it late into the night, several nights in a row. Legend of Grimrock. Have you ever heard of this game?
I think you've mentioned it to me before.
I don't know if I knew anything about this game until the Steam Summer Sale. Maybe I had seen it, but never actually played it. It's a very old school dungeon crawl, grid-based dungeon crawler. Nowadays, when you hear the term dungeon crawler, you think of Diablo or something like that. This is not like a big loot game. It's almost like a point-and-click game. You can only move
I see.
in a grid. You can only move forward, back, side to side, and you're not free looking. It's not a first-person game.
I was thinking of a different game.
But
this is way different than what I thought.
Prisoners who you don't know what their crimes are, but their punishment is that they're thrown into this mountain, and if they survive, so they're granted forgiveness of their crimes before they're thrown into the mountain. And it's basically like the people that are doing this to them as their punishment are assuming they'll die in the mountain. And so you play the game trying to play your way through the mountain, and if you survive, then obviously, you've already been forgiven of your crime,
free.
So you're free. And it's a grid-based. You slowly go through this dungeon. You have to check every wall for looking for little cracks that you can click on that'll open up a hidden door. Solving puzzles. The combat is so you're seeing through the eyes as if you were one person, but you're actually a group of 4 characters. And so each character, basically you right-click on that character's whichever fist, and if they have a mace in this hand and you right click on that, they'll swing with the mace. It's timed but live action, so almost what World of Warcraft is, where it's it's kind of turn-based because everything is on some sort of timer, but at the same time, if
they have a specific name for that, I can't remember what exactly
I can't think
it
of
is,
the term.
Yeah,
that's what it is. But it's tricky because it's almost like if you get into a fight with something, as long as you don't back yourself into a corner or you get into a situation where you're having to fight more than one, you're probably going to survive. But because you can only move on this grid, you can lock yourself into a position that you can't get out of.
Oh, man.
And then you just have to take damage until you die.
That sounds bad.
So, yeah, I don't know. I got super addicted to it. It was only $3. And I've stayed up late a few nights playing it now. And what happens is I'll make a lot of progress. And then also the way the game saves, if you don't save frequently, you'll end up having to you'll die, and then you'll realize. Do you have
free saves, or do you have to have points that you
can save
back?
As much as you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no ink ribbons or anything like that. you'll forget inevitably, and then like you'll die
Yeah,
and
of
realize how
course.
far back you are, and you're like, oh crap.
Yep, and when you need to.
Right, exactly. So yeah, it's a cool game. I bought the second one. I tried it on the Steam Deck, so it runs great on Proton. I had a weird resolution issue, nothing that kept me from playing the game, but it wouldn't use my full resolution. But I have the UHD monitor, so probably most people wouldn't have the problem. And I played it on the Steam Deck, and it is playable, but because of the way, it's just not convenient. You have to use your mouse a lot. It's not convenient to play on the Steam Deck.
I see. It's not made for touch screens and not that great. If it was touch enabled, would it be good though?
So it has in the settings, they have a feature called tablet mode, which basically makes it so that you can touch. But even that, I just don't find convenient on the Steam Deck.
Okay, I gotcha.
But yeah, technically you can play it on the Steam Deck.
Because then you gotta have one hand on the Steam Deck and you gotta be tapping the screen with your other hand. You can't hold it with both hands. Weird.
Exactly.
It's really none of that.
But the second one, also, I bought it. I think I spent $8 total on both games. I'll tell you what, I did buy that is good for the Steam Deck, and that's Signalis. It's a game that there's a lot of hype around it in the survival horror community. There's a lot of really good commentary on this game, so I've had it on my wish list for a while.
That looks pretty.
You would like it. It's definitely for like an old school survival horror fan, but it's also different in the way that it's like this like top-down, gritty kind of game. But it runs great on the Steam Deck, so all I've done on that game so far is install it and see how it plays on the Steam Deck, and it is flawless, great Steam Deck experience. And
nice.
I already know enough about the game. I'm actually kind of spoiled a little bit on the story. I haven't played it yet, but I've watched enough stuff about it. I know it's a good game, so I'll start working on that slowly on the Steam Deck. How about you? What'd you pick up on the Steam sale?
All right, so technically I picked up 3 things, but the third one's not a game. But
okay,
so Kingdom Hearts, I picked up I think it's called the Continuum or whatever it is, where it's like all the games.
Yeah.
So basically it was like $20 a game technically.
Okay.
But really it kind of spread out even more because there's multiple games in each one. Like it gives you the DS version of the games too. Either play or just watch the movie because the gameplay is a little weird on PC. So they kind of like gave you the option, like you can just watch the movie.
I'm pretty sure that's I know there's been a bunch of announcements on King of Hearts being like they specifically worked it so that it would work well on the Steam Deck. And
really,
yeah, I believe that's the same version you purchased. I know that there was a lot of advertisements on that on Steam before the summer sale.
I didn't even know about that. I just got it because I love Kingdom Hearts.
Oh yeah,
that was like one of the games back in the day that I got the furthest in, that I never really beat, but I've gotten the furthest in out of most. Yeah, pet peeve of mine.
Yeah,
you go on these websites and they're like, oh, this is like a 20-30 hour game. I remember back in the day spending months on this game, like just every waking moment I could play it, I would play it. I'm like, this is not a 20-30 hour game when you don't.
I see that a lot of times too, especially like short indie games. There's games that I'll play for like a week and taking several hours, and then I'll watch some review and they'll be like, this short 4-hour title, and it's like, what? You're like a speed runner.
Just like that little game I bought a couple months back. The dinosaur one where you just go through it. But it took me like 6 or so. I'm taking my time, That
happens to me all the time. I think these people that are doing these reviews, they just don't want to admit that it took them 6 hours.
Exactly. Well, it's only 2 hours. But yeah, so I got that. Plays really well on pretty much everything I've played it on. No problems on Linux at all. I didn't try this one on Linux because I don't have Linux on my desktop yet, which that's coming. It's been coming for a long time, but now I think I can actually switch fully. But anyway, Horizon Forbidden West I got. Don't buy them if they're not like more than 20% off or whatever it was. I think this ended up being 31% off, so it was kind of like that. But I really liked the first one, so I'm like, I'm actually gonna get this one because the first one was really good and it was definitely worth the money for that one. But I have not tried this on Linux because I don't have a computer that's powerful enough to play this on Linux yet.
Yeah,
but
let's see what it says on ProtonDB.
That's a good question. I did not look at that. Guess I'll play it anyway.
I might have typed it wrong, or their website's down. No, it's up. I typed it wrong. All right, let's see. Horizon Forbidden West. Gold, baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to be honest, a lot of times if it says gold, really does work very well. It's just there was a couple of people who did something wrong, or just their install was not quite right, and it just didn't work. Like if you look through the comments, you can kind of suss out the we know. They're like, oh, this works great. And then the sixth one will be like, yeah, it didn't work at all, didn't start, yada yada. And I understand there's a lot of things that could be. It's not necessarily the game's fault.
So it says that there is a crackling audio out of sync issue, but now I'm only judging this by a few comments, but it looks like people are saying that it's happening on Fedora, where they've tested it on other distros and they've not had the issue.
The original I thought was a graphical glitch on Linux, but it actually ended up being my sharpening on my monitor. I had to turn the sharpening down, and it was like this weird, like the grass shimmered and like flickered and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the third thing that I got that isn't really a game, but is I got a DLC, I guess, quote unquote, for RPG Maker MZ.
Oh, okay.
But I found out that this can pretty much be used for anything. So I've been trying out Godot with this pack that I bought. It's a medieval pack, so it's kind of like in the style of Baldur's Gate, the original game. And I'm trying to work through Godot, and so far I've literally only got like the character walking animation.
Yeah, hey, that's a start. So I was planning to talk about it on the show, but it was during our gap in time where we didn't do an episode for a while.
Void.
Vacation and stuff. The void, yeah, that's what we'll start calling it. I started trying to so when I worked in Godot in the past, I was like heavily following tutorials, and I basically just did what they did in the tutorial. And I'm trying to, which that's a good way to learn, by the way, I'm not criticizing that, but I'm trying to decide what I want to do and then just look up how to do that part of it.
Yes.
And then move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? So I'm still following tutorials, but I'm joining tutorials and not just following one guy from beginning to end. You know what I mean?
Right. And I agree with that because you can make it your own instead of having a whole entire game that somebody has made, over a course of 20 hours and trying to make that your own, which is kind of impossible. But if you take pieces and you make each one of those your own, it's a lot easier and maneuverable than trying to do a whole series. I've tried that many times with the whole series thing and it doesn't end up working out.
So where I got to was creating a first-person controller with all the motion and stuff, but then also a lerping feature so that it would slow down and speed up instead of just being immediate.
Oh, with the mouse, it'll slow down kind of almost like you stepped a step. Kind of slowed down,
and I did a few other, crouching and jumping and that sort of stuff. But where I'm at now is I don't know the proper way to actually build the 3D level environment.
See, you're working with 3D. I'm doing 2D.
I may have to so what I was trying to do was a 3D level, but with 2D sprites for the enemies, kind of like Doom style,
Yeah, I gotcha.
That was my plan because I can draw the 2D sprites.
Right. It means you don't have to actually have a character per se.
Yeah. And I would draw the little hand with a sword or whatever they're carrying. I wanted to hand draw all of that stuff and put it into the game. But I'm kind of at a standstill because everything I looked up about the level design is there's ways to do it with the level editing tool in Godot, but it's not the most efficient way. And so I'm worried that I'll build something overly complicated and then it'll load real slow. So I think I have to learn how to do it in Blender. And that's where I'm just this just seems like too much.
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing about the 2D style is you can do everything in Godot.
Yeah. And with 2D, I could probably draw the map, by hand and then import that into the game. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would commit a lot of time to it and then never really finish it.
So I'm kind of thinking the same way as you, but I really, really want to do this.
I always want to do it because I'm we could bring it and talk about it on the podcast. But then I'm not knowledgeable enough to be an authority on it to actually talk about it on the show. So then I'm it's not really making show content. You know what I mean?
I know. Yeah.
So I'm always
afraid
back
to
and
say
forth
something
on it.
stupid. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just kind of winging it. Oh no, I totally get what you're saying. I will admit I have no idea what I'm doing.
I think that I like working in Godot because I like writing GD script, and
I'm avoiding GD script because
I
you
know.
can't really, that's like not translatable to anything. So I'm kind of trying to do the C# route.
I remember this dilemma. So when I was trying to do game development, and I was trying to dedicate every Sunday to it, I was avoiding everything but the coding because that's the part that I felt like I could do.
Right.
And then, but when it comes to doing, like, actually making anything that's going to be in the game, I don't know how to do any of that. So, like, and so that's the epiphany I came to is like, well, I can't just do code. I'm going to have to eventually either buy assets from somebody and use their assets. But then I feel like I'm just doing, like, you know, the Unity game, what do they call it? Asset flip thing.
The
I'm
asset
just like
flip,
buying someone's assets and then putting my character in it. But yeah, I can draw 2D and I can code to some degree. I understand coding really well. I can learn GD script really fast. But I don't think that's enough to put, unless I do 2D. So maybe I should do 2D, but then I don't have any good 2D ideas. I don't really want to make like a Zelda ripoff. I don't know what I want to make as far as like what makes a good 2D game.
Well, that's what I was kind of in the mindset of before I found this artwork, and I was like, oh man, this is really cool because it's like kind of realistic looking. Like, it's not like cartoonish or anything. Not that I'm batting on cartoonish stuff. Like, that's fine. Yeah. But like when I saw this, I was like, this is how I want to make my game look.
I might try to make a point and click game, or like, what do they call the novels that you play through or whatever?
Oh, the visual novel.
Like, I might try to do something like that where it's just like mostly story and there's not much.
Ren'Py, if you've never heard of that. Ren'Py is like
I hadn't seen this, but that's interesting. I haven't touched Python in it's been 3 years.
Wow.
and I'm sure this is not using pandas or any of the data analysis stuff that I was learning in Python.
Yeah, off that tangent.
We need to do more game dev talk, but that's kind of the thing is like, I think for it to work on the show, it would have to be like, we pick something that is achievable. I think my idea that I had for a game is just like unachievable. Like, I'll never get there.
Mine is pretty much the same.
More achievable ideas than I do. I'm like trying to make a AAA 3D game. You know what I mean? Like, it's never going to happen.
Versus 2D. Yeah, it's definitely a lot harder to do.
So I think we need to set a real goal that we can really get to, simplify our idea, and then we make it a part of the podcast, but we're not the authority on it. We're explaining our learning of this process. You know what I mean?
Yep, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we could just make a demo. I mean, come on.
Yeah. No, dude, I think one of my favorite games that I played this year so far was the demo for that Lake
Silent
game.
Hill?
It was a Silent Hill type game. I can't remember the name of it. No, the Lake. Oh God, what's the name of that game? It's not Crystal Lake. Oh gosh. Oh God.
Crystal Light.
No, I've got to look. Lake Haven.
Lake Haven. Okay.
Yeah, Lake Haven.
But wasn't that like a
it was a Silent Hill
kind of game?
Exactly.
That's why.
And it was just a short demo, and supposedly there's more game coming out. And I'm telling you, I think it was my favorite thing I played this year. So Steam Summer Sale, it ends on the 11th. So this episode will probably be aired like the 10th or the 9th. So you better get on it if you haven't already. But I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you're already on Steam. You're already probably $50 deep in $3 games at this point. Linux Mint 22 July release is delayed due to many bug reports. This is breaking news, hot off the press. We're beating Jupiter Broadcasting to this. We're beating all the big Linux shows. They don't know about this yet. You're hearing it here first, people. So Linux Mint 22 is looking like a solid base for the future, but there are many bugs in this beta. Some of the issues are important. AppArmor security changes leading to application crashes, hardware acceleration playback libraries, making Xorg crash, flatback/mint install issues, etc. So it's looking like they are going to have to delay for a more stable release. They go on to say that it's hard to give a precise ETA for the stable release. We will release this month, but this beta phase will take longer than a traditional 2 weeks. They actually say they got 109 bug reports. 53 are still open.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
I wonder what their normal, like, what do you think their normal bug report count is?
I don't know. Like, that's the thing. Like, the only way I could say is like go on GitHub to like the top projects and see how many bug reports they have. Releases.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it seems like a lot to me. 53, like that's, or that are still open. That's daunting now. I don't know how many developers there are on Linux Mint, like actual, full-time developers, but that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
When is this supposed to release?
I think it doesn't say in the article.
Okay, it doesn't, but yeah. I'm glad that they do pull back the release, the release date if it's not correct or if it's not to what they want. Because, some of these places just, release crap and it's like,
right.
Yeah, we'll fix it. There'll be a day one patch. Don't worry.
Yeah, if this was Windows 12, it would already be out.
Exactly.
We'll fix it as we go.
So, it does seem like a lot, but at the same time, at least you're going to have a stable version until they get this fixed and they release it. So that's a good thing.
Yep.
It kind of seems like a lot of maybe changes that Ubuntu have done. And in the upstream, they have nothing to do with that. So I'm assuming Ubuntu changed a lot and they're like...
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look at any of the bugs or anything like that either. We just found the article before we did the show. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. But probably, obviously, if they're not ready to release it, then they're more likely to make the decision. Well, I don't know, specific to the Linux Mint team, but I would imagine that most teams nowadays are more likely to prematurely release than to release and then figure it out as they go. And so I think that means that it's probably pretty significant bugs that are reported.
Or pull back a release.
Yeah.
Or push back a release.
But KDE Plasma 6.1 released actually a little bit ago. And they have some new features to brag about. Let me add in all right. So Plasma 6.1, some new features. They have a nice layout on their website.
I do like their website, how they have it set up.
And I like how they have videos. They have videos for each feature.
Yeah.
So the first feature here is access remote Plasma desktop. So within the settings menu, they have a remote desktop feature that you can connect to. And there is a KRDP client.
Of course.
It's an RDP client built right into Plasma. So that's a pretty handy feature. They also have customization made more visual.
Yeah, this is really cool because I always found it a pain in the neck to customize KDE, but now they have this little pop-up that comes up.
Oh, okay.
That little side
normally
wasn't
you
there.
Drag it.
Not that I do a lot of that, but for the initial setup, that's pretty awesome.
Plasma is all about the fancy. Like if you're like someone that mods your desktop a lot, then yeah, they have all that.
But they've also come very far in just setting up your distro and it's it. You don't need to do anything else because before I had to tweak a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't really use it. But now there's two things I need to change. And that's the natural scrolling for touchpads. And if I don't have a touchpad, I don't even need to do that.
They also have persistent apps. So this looks like...
Now that's something I'm pretty interested in because that's kind of cool.
So it remembers what you were doing in your last session like it did under X11.
Yeah, so if you make multiple desktops or whatever, it'll remember what windows are in what desktop. So when you relaunch it, it'll basically have them in the same place.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
RGB.
Yeah, here's the one I forgot about. So this is like a color sync to your LED keyboard. I wonder what keyboards are supported. Whenever I recently got a new keyboard, it was like a big feature that it was universally supported across all these apps that do keyboard LED colors and stuff. So I imagine there's a big library of keyboards that are universally supported in this way.
Yeah, I wonder if my keyboard for my desktop will be supported.
Yeah, so I have a keyboard that is supported by most apps, and then I have a keyboard that is not. So basically, you can set your desktop wallpaper color, and if you have this feature turned on, it will match your keyboard color with the theme of your desktop.
That's just crazy to me.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's a pretty cool feature. I like it. The KDE Plasma team.
Just please don't add AI. We don't want it.
AI. I need AI to decide what color my keyboard should be.
That'll be the next feature. AI decides for you.
It somehow figures out my mood based on
the temperature of your palm on the touchpad.
My keyboard is like a mood ring. It knows my schedule because it's connected to my calendar or whatever.
Oh, gosh.
It can tell on a really busy day, it turns red because it knows I'm pissed off.
It makes you even more angry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It should do the opposite.
It should turn blue so it makes you calmer.
I keep saying I'm going to try Plasma, and I mean it when I say it, but I have not.
I understand. It's not something you can just change out. You know?
Yeah, I've not done it yet. I'm stuck in my ways. It took me forever to switch to GNOME. It took me forever to switch to Unity, and then from Unity to GNOME. And then, well, no, there was a long period of Cinnamon there. Even when I wasn't using Linux Mint, I would still install Cinnamon.
Yep.
And now I'm happy with GNOME. I don't want to change, but yeah, I need to try it. I need to try it out. Elden Ring Inappropriate Activity. So if
it's
you
not
are,
what you think.
or is it?
Or is it?
You might be if you're forgetting. So if you're getting the inappropriate activity error message within Elden Ring, it's either because you're a Linux user running on Proton, or you are performing inappropriate activity. It's one of those two things. And either way, we've got the solution. So this was reported on gamingonlinux.com. As many of our stories are, we get a lot from Gaming on Linux. So they pointed out that they have a solution. I've got a link to it in the show notes, but I'm going to describe it here also. But a lot of Linux users, after the most recent update, were getting this inappropriate activity error message whenever they try to launch the game. And of course, this is flagged by the anti-cheat for Elden Ring. Well, it turns out that this may be related to the most recent DLC for Elden Ring, which is like half a game in one DLC. And even if you don't have the DLC, you could get this error message. Well, to resolve it, you need to run the file verification. So much like in the way like MMOs, World of Warcraft, like they have the file verification, or even built into Steam. I bet it's the one built into Steam that they're asking you to use. You run the file verification. It will basically fix any misaligned files. It will reinstall many files and check all your files. And if you have the DLC, that's probably all you need to do. You can run the game. You won't get the error message, most likely. But even if you don't have the DLC, you have to create a DLC.bdt file. And again, we have a link to this in the show notes. But if you create that file, it tricks the game into thinking you have the DLC. It's just tricking the anti-cheat somehow into, because it's some sort of weird bug, but in order to get around it, if you add that file and run the verification of the files on your PC, then you will no longer get the inappropriate activity detected error. Yeah.
Yeah. Sims has a very similar issue.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like when they release their DLC. So what happens is a week before they release the DLC, they'll release a Sims update. And when Sims updates, a lot of times it breaks things. So then that week they kind of do whatever last fixes they might need to do, and then they release the DLC. This kind of sounds like the same thing. They released an update to the actual game to support the DLC, and that added this issue into what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Because it's happening for both non and DLC people. So that's what I would think.
It used to be that every time World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14 would come out with a new patch, it was like Linux users were all screwed for about 2 weeks. Because it was like, okay, you know, this messed everything up, and now we've got to figure out how to make it all work again within Wine or whatever. So it was like every time people are like asking for a week off of work for the new patch release. But like if you were a Linux gamer, you asked for the second week of the patch release off of work. Let's see. So the next three news items that we've got is all kind of related in a way. I want to do the Turtle WoW one first, I think.
All right.
So Turtle WoW, which I still think you need to play.
I got to get on that.
You've never played regular WoW, and Turtle WoW could be your only experience.
Wow.
I think it would be a better experience than genuine WoW, too. It's more interesting because it's community made, you know, made by fans of the game.
I do like that aspect.
Yeah. Well, actually, my wife and I, she started her WoW account back recently, and she like never plays. And I started my account back just so that I could play with her on the few times that she does play. And just recently, I think she went a full month where we paid for the subscription, and I don't think she logged in once.
Oh, man.
Maybe she logged in once, maybe one time. And so I was telling her, I was like, dude, you just need to play Turtle Wow because there's no subscription fee. And as little as you play, and all you do is quest, like, you're going to be happy with Turtle Wow. So for those that have never heard us talk about it on the show before, Turtle Wow it's a private server for World of Warcraft. It's classic vanilla WoW, but they've added on to it. They've added new quest areas. They've added their own little expansions. Their goal is to be like in an alternate reality and like another in Earth 22, you know, where Blizzard, instead of releasing the Burning Crusade, just continued to support vanilla WoW and just tried to improve it. All these companies now, MMO companies are going back to their base.
RuneScape included. They have old school RuneScape.
I think it's more popular.
Probably is because it is better.
But also Turtle WoW has like you can get special achievements for either doing like a Iron Man mode, a hardcore mode where like you die for good. Your character can't be, regenerated. He dies forever. And then there's the Turtle WoW achievement, which is the one I usually play as. But basically, before you gain your first level, you go to this vendor and you buy a glyph that puts a special version of the game on your character. And whenever you die, you lose experience, and it just is a slower paced leveling of the game. Hence the title, Turtle WoW. And
yes, I get it now.
So they just announced something unreal, like legitimately unreal.
Like, we're not even sure if it's possible.
Yeah. So a Unreal version of the game. Like they're using the classic WoW models and they're putting it in Unreal Engine and somehow importing, and this is the part that I don't understand. They're somehow importing the game into Unreal, but like it's still going to have all the quests, all the mechanics of classic WoW, like all of that is still there. Somehow, I don't see how this is possible.
The only thing I can see at all is it must be written in C++, which is what Unreal uses. So maybe they can do this. Possible. Okay. I don't know.
I didn't even consider that.
I've been doing all sorts of research on game engines, and I'm like, I know every one of them uses.
I didn't know that Unreal did C++, but it's like
I would imagine that's probably why it's possible at all. But still, even so, it's still daunting.
They're saying that you're going to be able to choose. So you're going to play on a server with other players that are, some of them could be still using the classic graphics and not using the Unreal graphics. And then some of them could be using the Unreal graphics. At the same time? At the same time.
What?
They're saying you're going to have a choice. Now, that's the way I take it. Maybe they mean that you're going to have a choice by you either join the Unreal server or you join the classic server.
That's how RuneScape does it.
I don't know if that's what it'll be or if they're literally saying you can flip it on and off in the game, which is how I take it.
Yeah, kind of like
their advertising.
Yeah, kind of Halo. The Master Chief Collection can hit tab and it'll switch from the new graphics to the old graphics.
But imagine, all right, so like they have to have a way to port the entire game into Unreal and then just use Unreal for the graphics portion, but all the quests and everything still operate the same. Otherwise, they're saying they're going to rebuild World of Warcraft in Unreal, remake all the quests and all of that, and that just seems like that will never happen.
They must have built like an importer or something like that, or had someone build an importer that can actually translate it. Unless it just goes directly, which that doesn't make sense to me.
I listened to a Q&A today with the developers. I didn't listen to the entire thing. I only listened to the beginning. But one thing that I picked up just in that, even in the beginning of the call, was their normal Turtle WoW team that's working on the game right now. This like a different set of people that's working on the Unreal.
Oh, okay.
They're like dedicating people just to this project. But if they're able to do it, this is like something that private servers have been wanting to do for years and years. There's been YouTube videos of people remaking Elwyn Forest in Unreal Engine. Like like this has been a thing amongst the World of Warcraft modding community forever. And if the Turtle Wow team actually pulls this off without getting sued by Blizzard, by the way, like, I can't believe that it would be the biggest feat in private server history for World of Warcraft.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting to pay attention to.
And I got to imagine that Blizzard will have something to say about it because, you know, just like whenever got real popular and then Blizzard sent them a cease and desist. And then not long after that, Blizzard announced that they were going to do their own classic servers. And they actually contacted those people and invited them out and spoke with them. I don't know if I would use the word consulted because I don't know that they asked them for advice, but they at least invited them out and talked to them. I got to imagine that if somebody is able to make a vanilla version of World of Warcraft, that the only difference is that the graphics is in Unreal Engine with all the lighting and particle and everything that you could do there. I feel like you would be getting
100%.
contacted by Blizzard for sure.
Yeah, hopefully they don't get shut down like you said. But
I kind of think that Blizzard would want to do it themselves and possibly try to shut them down. Because if they don't, I got to tell you, if they don't, I'm not going to start my WoW account back. I'm going to just play Turtle WoW. That seems like the way to go.
You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to tell them that you're going to pay for it, and that's not going to change your mind about Blizzard.
If it'll keep Turtle WoW, I'll subscribe to WoW and I'll just never log in. I'll just log into Turtle WoW just to give Blizzard money to keep them off. Keep them off Turtle WoW's back.
Off their shell.
I'm actually excited about this news, so I hope that actually.
That's really cool, though. Yeah, that's a huge feat. I'm going to be curious to know if they release how they did it, man, how they're working on it.
They could be full of crap. This may never happen. I mean, like, we don't really know. But
this might be unreal.
Yeah. But we'll see if they do it. I know that was actually the first thing I thought of whenever I saw the video. I said, man, this would make a great April Fool's Day video. Well, we'll see. I'll keep trying to find interviews. I've heard them on a lot of podcasts. They're pretty open about doing interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll keep listening for more details on it and talk about it on the show, but that would be amazing.
Sweet.
We got classic vanilla WoW in Unreal Engine. But it has to feel the same. That's the thing it's like there's things about classic WoW that like are just like little details that you couldn't even write out on paper.
Yeah.
That if they get it wrong, it'll feel different and it won't feel like you're playing classic.
And funny you mentioned that because I have an exact comparison that I can say to that. And that's I got Spyro, the reignited.
Yeah, okay.
And that is remade with Unreal Engine.
Oh, okay.
And you are not wrong about they cannot recreate the little the original in
That's
Unreal
what I would worry
because
about.
things that when I'm playing that game, I'm like, something's off, off. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's not actual Spyro.
Yeah, I thought about getting that for my son because I used to love that game whenever I was a kid.
I love Spyro. Not a bad game, real version.
It's
not,
right
not
up my
bad
son's. My son loves dragons. Like it's right up his alley too. My son was at Books A Million, and he wanted to get this 3-headed dragon doll, and it was like $40 or something. It was expensive for a little like stuffed animal. And so my wife was trying to convince him to get another dragon that was like $20, you know? And he was like, no, but this one has 3 heads. And I was like, he's got a point, babe. Like that one only has 1 head.
You're getting more for your money.
You're getting 3 heads. You get 2 whole extra heads out of this one. Good reasoning there. So maybe I guess there's just a community of porters out there that, you know, they're doing this for like Morrowind and stuff like that too, where they're remaking the game and
Oblivion, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So these next 2 stories, which will be the last 2 stories, they're loosely connected to one another. But the first is that Palia, I mentioned it when it first came out, and it's free to play. It's on Steam now. Palia it's an MMO that is like no combat. It's basically Disney Dreamlight, but as an MMO and with no Disney characters. You farm, you build houses, you cook, like you do everything, all the extra stuff that are in MMOs that you never get around to doing because you're too busy killing Murlocs. This game has no Murlocs, you know, it's just those extra things. And you can group up and you can cook together. Like, it's a pretty interesting concept for an MMO, really. And I remember when it first came out, I was kind of rooting for it. I wanted it to do well, even though I played it and I felt like it wasn't going to hold my interest. And I got to imagine a lot of people felt that way. So it seems like they went through a period of time where they were really struggling. They had to do layoffs. They were trying to get more
man.
investment. Well, they actually got purchased by Daybreak Games, which is the parent company that owns EverQuest. So that's a pretty interesting...
Yeah, that's just crap.
Yeah. I'm kind of optimistic about it. I actually re-downloaded the game on Steam, which, like I said, I never tried the Steam version. And I'm interested to see where this goes, even though I still feel like it's not really a game for me. Like, I still don't... It doesn't feel right when I play the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily need combat to be the main focus, but I need a reason to group up with other people. Like, in Palia...
Yeah.
Why would I cut down trees with somebody else?
That's something I can do by myself.
There needs
like
to
an
be
introvert.
And maybe this is a thing. And anybody out there that plays Palia, let me know. But like, there needs to be like trees that require 3 people to cut down. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and I think there might be stuff like that in the game. But all the videos I watched on YouTube to like learn more about it, to talk about it on the show, I only ever see people playing solo. And when they group, it's just like they're either helping somebody that's like way far behind, they're helping somebody level up faster. But like, I want like group content that's like, what's the dungeon raid version in Palia? You know, like...
Yeah, like a common interest that everyone has to work together to attain.
Because when you're playing the game, you know, you start out, you have to like cut down a bunch of trees, do a bunch of rocks. It's basically like, you know, any of those type of survival games. Where you start out by cutting down trees, then you can make tools, and then you use the tools to cut down bigger trees, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, it's not really that different than like low level, you know, in World of Warcraft where you're attacking wolves or whatever. There's no chance in hell this wolf is going to kill you. So like really the combat of it is really inconsequential. So like whether I'm attacking a wolf that has no ability to kill me, or I'm chopping down a tree, it's really the same grind. But the grouping aspect is where they lose me. Like, there has to be a reason that I want to get together with 3 other players to cut down trees. And I don't know what that is.
Like, basically, they're just spinning it as like, oh, you can do this together. Not, you have to do it together. You just can.
You just can.
They're probably trying to just balance the single versus multiplayer because everybody knows that everybody has a different way of playing these MMOs. Mm-hmm. Some people play them alone. Some people play them in groups. Some people, you know, go. I think they're trying to like get something that's doesn't require you to have 3 people, but you can have 3 people to do it.
Yeah. When we played Embers Adrift together, the thing that kind of burned us out a little bit was you had to be with other people. There was nothing you could do alone. Unless you just wanted to kill rabbits all day, there's nothing you can do alone. And that got annoying. There's times that I just want to log in and I don't want to talk to nobody else.
Accomplish something alone.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that game didn't have enough of that to do. Whereas like this is like the opposite problem where it's like, I might as well be playing Disney Dreamlight. Like, why am I even playing this game? Like, there's no point in being on a server with other people. So, but all that said, I am rooting for this game. I think it's an interesting idea. It's a novel concept, and I hope that it succeeds. And I think I've been watching videos. A lot of the fans of this game they're taking this acquisition as like they're worried about, well, what if Daybreak comes in and they fill the game full of dragons and now we got to fight things? Like, we want the core feeling of the game to stay the same. They're worried that Daybreak is going to change everything and it's going to be, I don't know.
Make it more like EverQuest.
Right, just make EverQuest with farming. But I don't think that'll be the case. I think this is a good thing. And also, the other piece of news that we have is EverQuest just released a Origin server. They did one a few years ago, but this is a new one that they just did like 2 weeks ago. And it's not the original base version of the game, which was like 2004. This is EverQuest 2, by the way. This is the 2006 version of the game. So, like, for those of you that may not know, EverQuest 2 launched, and it was like a pretty well-received game by the EverQuest community. But, like, it launched like 2 weeks before the original World of Warcraft launched, which basically meant that, like, nobody played it except for the EverQuest community to fail. Just like horrible, like in the history of game releases, it might be the worst. Like, it was just terrible timing. And so this is a relaunch of the game, but it's based on like a 2006 build. So it's still early, but it has some improvements from the base game. And I've never played EverQuest 2 before. I kind of took this as my opportunity to try it out while people are playing it. Because that's another thing, too, is like, if you probably logged into EverQuest 2 a month ago, it was probably a ghost town because hardly anybody's playing the game anymore versus everybody's logging in now to try out this new server. But I have to say, it was not easy to like, it's not like you log into the game and then you immediately get to choose which realm you want to go to. And they have all these advertising arrows pointing to it. You have to kind of like jump through some hoops. I had to Google how to even like make a character on this server. You have to install the game, and then whenever you launch it for the first time, you have to go into the settings and change a setting saying that you want to use an origin server. And then whenever you log in again to create a game, all your other characters will say that they're not connected to the server. But when you make a new character, it will be on this new origin server. So it's kind of like, I don't know, the fact that people are seeking out the steps to do this, and like Daybreak is not like advertising this everywhere. I'm kind of amazed that people are playing it, but people are playing it. I've logged in and I've been grouping up with people. There's lots of people playing still, even now. So I'm getting to experience the game for the first time with people actually playing the game. So it's kind of cool. Have you ever played?
That's interesting.
EverQuest?
I played the first EverQuest. Yeah, a little bit. Not like I wasn't into it. Like again, I was RuneScape guy.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't RuneScape, I really didn't play it.
Right. Yeah, I know. I've never played RuneScape. But, why don't you let me teach you about Warcraft, and then we'll do you teach me about RuneScape. We'll do a series on both. I'm digging it.
No, EverQuest 2 though.
Also on ProtonDB, Platinum is running on.
That's good.
I've never tried the non-Steam version, but the Steam version is running fine, and the graphics, just set the graphics all the way up. The game came out in 2006. You can run it on your toaster. You're not going to have any issues at all playing it. I would say it's easy. So this, people that played it when it first came out, they may feel differently, but at least this 2006 build and this recreation that they've done of it, my take is it feels easier than Vanilla WoW, but not. They announced that they were releasing it with no cash shop. They've already added in a cash shop, and it is selling experience.
But it was
potions.
released without it.
Right, exactly. I think it's only been out for 2 weeks, so I don't know. It didn't take them long. But the cash shop has cosmetic items. It does have experience boost potions, but their low experience is 5% and 10%. And then they do have larger slot. You can buy like a 10 slot bag or something like that, which doesn't sound like a lot in World of Warcraft terms, but I think is a lot in EverQuest 2 terms. So there is some stuff on the cash shop, but I think people that are playing this, though, they're looking for the old school experience. And I don't think a lot of the people are going to be like seeking out, pay to win features.
No, definitely not me. I don't like pay to win. And
I also saw an interview with Daybreak Games where they talked about EverQuest 3. So they're actually investing in another EverQuest. They said that they are just in talks. Like, they're not even in development. They're just talking about ideas right now.
Oh, wow.
They just bought Palia, right? They're hiring for their EverQuest 3. So it sounds like Daybreak Games might be trying to reinvest and build their empire again, which would be exciting.
Especially in this day and age.
Anyway, this was a lot of boomer MMO news on this episode, which I'm always excited about. But it wasn't planned that way. It just all kind of came out around the same time. But thanks for listening.
Yep. I think we're good.
All right. Thanks for listening.
There's something I forgot, but
it's all right. We'll get together. Well, I'm going to Texas next week, but we'll get together right after I get back from Texas. And I've lost all light. See how it did get like
darker and darker. I could just barely see.
It's like if the only reason why I even have light right now is because the screens are white. Even my background is white. I don't know. I have to pull up a big dark screen.
Oh my gosh, now I can't see you. Where are you? Where'd Bo go? He disappeared.
Yeah. All right. Well, see ya.